Hey Cure fans, how's it going out there? This is Gavin again. Welcome to the Holy Hour podcast, the bi-weekly all Cure podcast. So if you're looking for some Cure talk, you've done it, you found us. And thanks so much for joining us again. If you have listened to the show, this would be a weird first episode, but we won't turn anybody away, right? So grab a seat, get comfy. We got a fairly spontaneous episode for once this time. Don't have a lot of quick turnaround kind of episodes here, and for two reasons mainly. One, because I'm kind of lazy, and it mostly just takes a little while. We come up with an idea. Usually Donald and I will brainstorm some ideas, and then we'll write it down, research it a bit, bounce some ideas back and forth, have it in the back of our head, then get around to recording it. Sometimes involve other people. We wait for each other's files, and sometimes we put it together. Sometimes we don't. I mix it, believe it or not. And, that could take like a month sometimes to finally get all the pieces together. And so the second reason is that the band's been around for about 40 years at this point, so there's not a lot of like super current news, especially now that the 2016 tour is over. So, we're usually talking about stuff that happened, in the 80s. So not a lot of, hey, guess what kind of stuff, which is good, because I don't want to be like a breaking news kind of dude. But this time we do kind of have some breaking news. It was just a couple weeks ago. It all came together really fast that Reeves Gabrels and his imaginary friends were going on another tour and hitting up the mostly East Coast, Northeast, and they're going to kick off their tour right here in Asheville, North Carolina. And so I was like, I can't miss that. And if you still don't know what I'm talking about, some of the Cure fans out there might not be quite as familiar with him, but he's been playing lead guitar with the Cure, Reeves, and he played all through the 2016 tour. So if you saw any of that, you saw him. So you'd have to be pretty in the dark, but at the same time, some people don't really dig into the members as much. But he's, I think, officially declared a member. I thought I read that somewhere. As far as I'm concerned, he's an official member. He, did a wonderful job on that tour. He's an amazing guitarist. We'll get into some of his backstory in a little bit here, but he's a really cool guitarist and almost runs the thread of too good, to play those parts. But he really is a talent in his own right. And I wasn't super familiar with his solo stuff, so I did have a little time, not much. He basically announced the tour. And the show was the first date of the tour, so it was about like 2 weeks at the most, I think, maybe even just a week, where I was like, oh man, he's playing, I gotta go see this. And didn't really have as much time, and unintentionally we did an episode a few weeks back talking about side projects or just other projects of Cure members, and kind of breezed through his past a little quickly at the end there. Unintentionally at the time, but I'm glad now because we can kind of look at it. And if you aren't familiar, he played lead guitar most notably with David Bowie and Tin Machine on the two Tin Machine albums in 89 and 91. I believe they're called Tin Machine and Tin Machine 2. Never been a huge fan of those albums. I tried to re-listen to them in this short little gap of time. Still, you gotta love Bowie's voice and you gotta love his guitar playing. But the songs are just kind of, I don't know. They're not bad. I just don't personally like them. So, I tried to re-listen to them. They're pretty cool just for a listen, but nothing I want to throw on a lot. And a lot of his solo stuff kind of hits me that way too. But I definitely dug in and really enjoyed listening. I listened to, mostly focused on Ulysses, which came out in 2000. And Rockonica, which came out in 2005. So I recommend those two albums. I think he's got some other stuff floating around. I thought he said he had 6 solo albums out there. So tons of material out there. He's just done a great job playing with The Cure. On those 2 albums, there's a song called Yesterday's Gone that Robert sings vocals on. And also his version of a song he co-wrote with Robert and Jason Cooper for the Orgasmo soundtrack and song Sign from God. and that's actually the leadoff track on his album. So I wasn't even aware that there was a version that he sang out there. So that was cool to stumble across. More on those two songs later, but I really wanted this to be a fresh out of the gates kind of experience for this episode, since we did have this unusual opportunity. So I brought my little travel recorder with me, and I was going to do a review right there after the show, right after the show, and I got it about 80%. So this is kind of just the intro, but for some reason when I was driving back to my house while talking, there's a lot of kind of terrible noise, and I didn't want to put you guys through that. So I figured I'd cut all that out and kind of just introduce this episode as I am now, and we'll jump into the actual 5 minutes after the show recording that I did here in a second. The quality isn't that great, of course, because I'm still just sitting in my parked car, at least with the air off, though. And but I am kind of shouting because my ears got blasted pretty bad, loud, man. But it was awesome. I was just standing right in front of him too, so I got blasted pretty good. So so if it sounds like I'm shouting, I kind of am. I'll try to do my best to level myself out for you guys. But so yeah, a lot of shouting. It's at the Gray Eagle here in Asheville, North Carolina. My favorite venue to see any show at here in Asheville. And I do have a lot of Asheville music pride, but it is a weird music city and scene, just because we are a little out of the way for everybody. Usually, most commonly, it's someone coming from Nashville, which was the case with Reeves and his crew. And people can hit us pretty good coming from Nashville, Tennessee, and then go up to the northeast or down southeast. But a lot of times we get skipped, unfortunately. So so it's always a little weird crowd. It's a small city, so we don't really, have a huge reason to go out of your way to get here when you're on a tour too. So, but that being said, Gray Eagle's an amazing venue. I love it. It's one of those really weird wide venues though too. So when it's a smaller crowd, it can look very sparse, even when it's not so bad. There's other venues in town that could make it look like a fuller room, but it's just not the caliber of Reeves. So I was glad. The sound is always amazing at Gray Eagle, so I was glad he was playing there for sure, even though it was a sparse crowd. And probably a couple factors for that. It was a Wednesday night, so Wednesday night in Asheville. The venue's pretty wide, so it always looks a bit sparse anyways, unless it's really packed. Short notice, super short notice, and probably didn't get a lot of hype going out, and I don't really know how many people out there would know him by name or anything enough to put two and two together. There might be more casual fans that would just be like, oh, he what with The Cure? What, David Bowie? So maybe it's a little unfortunate, but I'm always a fan of small crowds, but and then, it's a couple people in the audience, even before they hit the first note, were all like, sorry, Asheville sucks. We don't have anybody here for you. And I'm like, don't call it out, just let them. He seemed in good spirits. They seemed to just be happy to get it rolling. And, they didn't let them phase them. Professionals. So anyway, I think we're about at to the point now where the recording will kick in. Just put yourself in my shoes for a second. You just came out of the venue. You just saw a wonderful show by Reeves Gabrels and his imaginary friends. So I'll kick it off to myself now. Here you go, guys. So yeah, it was billed as just Reeves, and I was like, wow, this is like a cool old man show. I'm down for this. Like 8 o'clock, doors are at 7, shows at 8. No opener. I was like, fuck yeah, man, I'll see him. I'll be home by like 10:30. This will be great. But they've been doing these like acoustic free shows on the patio kind of thing. And there was supposed to be an early show of one of those. And I guess they just figured because of the thinner crowd, or maybe there was a delay in the other guy's schedule or something, but they just had him open at 8. So they took this young gentleman and made him an opener. And, it would have been fine, but it was kind of like I'd got my hopes up for like a no opener. Let's just cut to the chase and see the band. It's like if you remember when you were a kid on a snow day, when like, you get it set when they're like, oh yeah, 100% chance of snow. No way you're going in. It wouldn't even been that big of a deal if you had to go the next day. But just because you had convinced yourself so much that you weren't going to school that next day, and then it turns around that you do have to go. It just is like, ah. So this poor fucking dude up there, and I was like, oh, great, an opener. And it did help. He was like this dude, and it was funny because he said, I'm from Fredericksburg, Virginia, where I grew up, like fucking Stafford and Fredericksburg, Virginia. And, man, not a good music scene there. And I'm just totally happy to shit on the music scene of Fredericksburg. But this guy, he was super strong voice and very talented guitarist, but was kind of doing the white boy blues kind of thing and was just feeling it way too much, It's like you would never think it would be possible for a musician to feel their own music too much. But I think this guy may have felt it a little too much. He had like the Joe Cocker faces going, and he's like, I got the blood bowl blues, yeah. And I was just like, and some of the songs were just, he had like a cool little kick drum thing going with his feet and the tambourine, but it was just like, ugh. I was not digging it. So sorry, dude. I won't call your name out even, but I don't know, it's just a weird crowd too, and then like just sizing it up of like, well, who came out for this? I was like, couldn't help but just kind of look around and of the sparse crowd, try to figure out, who were Cure fans, who were Bowie fans, who were just straight up Reeves fans, and I couldn't do it, man. I couldn't figure out who the hell anybody was really coming from. So maybe that is like a Cure thing, because when you go to Cure shows now, it's kind of like surprising to see all the different types of people kind of being judgy and just looking at them. So definitely a bunch of weirdos, and I'm probably no exception to that. But it's just like definitely an older crowd too. Saw like two people that were probably younger than me, and I'm like 40, so that's not really saying much. So yeah, so it was an older crowd, and everybody was cool though. Like of the sparse crowd that was there, everybody was really energetic and passionate and attentive. And as soon as Reeves came out with the company there, they just kind of launched into the rock and roll. And for those of you not familiar with what he's doing on this tour, it's Reeves Gabrels. Is it Gabrels or Gabrels? Gabrels, right? Reeves. I'm just going to call him Reeves. I still can never get it straight. Reeves and his imaginary friends, and they're basically promoting, technically, I think he just put out a live version, for a live CD, I guess, from the last tour. Or maybe it's not even on CD. I think I heard that it was just digital. So might be worth checking out, because I think it definitely translates a lot better live. Like I was saying, like the rock stuff is there, and then he just tears up the fucking guitar. Like, I mean, it's kind of what you would think going into it, just knowing he's an amazing guitarist, but like just seeing it firsthand, is like amazing, I play guitar, but I'm not like a big, riff kind of dude, and not like one to usually gush over huge solos and stuff, but it really is just like watching somebody that's just so good at anything they do just destroy it. And he really just takes it to the next level. Like right off the bat, it would just be like a cool kind of rock song, and then creeping in on and just the tones and stuff is like really where he excels. It's just like these cool sounds that aren't like just super gimmicky, like where he's got a billion pedals there, but it wasn't really like he was totally relying on like loops and shit, And that's what was weird. Getting back to who actually is in his band, it's a 3-piece, which is cool. It's a bass player, Kevin Hornback, I believe, on bass, and Mark, and I'll just call him Mark because I'm gonna massacre his last name, Pisapia maybe, on drums, and a very tight rhythm section, and really worked well for him because they would just lay it down and almost like fade out at times. I don't know if it was just my ears blowing out maybe, but like in the sections of the songs where Reeves would really just cut loose on his solos, the rhythm section would really just kind of like turn into this back wall of like rhythm, and just kind of let him like just step it up and just tear it up while still having this foundation to play over. And at various times it seemed like it was almost getting lost, but just delivering it. So the rhythm section was great, they're just two dudes, and they just kind of did what they needed to do to make the songs work for Reeves so he could play this amazing solos over it. And, anybody that's played in a three-piece rock band or is familiar enough knows that it's usually, like, always runs the risk of at times sounding too thin, like when you go into the lead parts of the solos, you're cutting out and not hitting all the chords and stuff in the back so much. So a lot of times, if you're not a great guitarist by any means, it's really tough. So a lot of 90s rock stuff, it's very, it just kind of cuts out and sounds thinner, and you can get by with like sloppier distortion stuff. But that was something I really thought was amazing watching them, was that how it never came anywhere close to sounding thin, and more amazing in the sense that, like, not only did he sound like one guitar not sounding thin, it sounded literally like four guitars. Bands I've seen with four guitars on stage didn't sound that full. There's just so much going on as far as like a wall of sound, then something that just has some cool tones in the back, and then he's still just working in the riffs and the solos over that. So, I mean, it really is just like amazing to watch, and I can't really, you just have to like see it. It's really weird, and I'd say it does run the risk of like so like mind-blowing and kind of exhausting though too. Like by the end of the set, I was kind of like, because pretty much every song had like a section where he just destroyed it and like tore it up. So it's a little much for me, just taste-wise, where I'm just like, ugh, okay. Like, more just you start to just take it for granted almost, like, watching it, he's still just doing these amazing solos and his hands just moving in these incredible directions and shapes, and then by the last time you're seeing it, you're kind of just like, okay, here he goes again, But that's a very minor complaint. It was really, really cool the way he just blew it out. And as far as Cure-related stuff, he did, I was totally happy that he played the Kogasm song from the Orgasmo soundtrack that they recorded with Robert and Jason Cooper recorded it, and which I was fairly recently surprised that isn't on the Join the Dots B-Sides box set. So I was like, what the hell is that on then? Is it only on the Orgasmo soundtrack now? Is that the only way you can find it? It's called A Sign from God, and it's a really cool song. Like, I always loved it right from the get-go, and yeah, he played it. It's on his album, too. I think it might be the first song, and it's cool because it's slightly different than the Cure version you may have heard, and I didn't even know that existed, that there was a version that he sang out there. So if anybody isn't familiar, I totally recommend tracking that down. I'll try to put a link on the Facebook page if you haven't heard it. So that was cool, and he gave a cool shout out to Robert on that, saying this is a song I wrote with Robert and Jason Cooper for the Orgasmo soundtrack, and didn't get a lot of cheers. So that was another thing that made me suspicious that maybe there weren't many Cure fans there. I was like, what the fuck, really? Nobody just going like, yeah, Orgasmo. But yeah, so that was cool shit, and select ones that I remembered from the two albums I have, and 2 to 3-ish albums, and he closed with Yesterday's Gone. That's probably the big one that people would recognize him from, because that's on his album Ulysses. I think it came out around 2000. But yeah, he sang that as well, and that's one that Robert sings on the actual recording. Definitely better with Robert's vocals gone, of course, but he did some really cool guitar stuff on that, and it's a really long, drawn-out closer. So that was cool shit. And at the end of that song, there's always like this cool thing that I thought was just a little synth line. And guess what? It's not. It's him doing some crazy guitar thing, turning the whammy bar back and the whole thing upside down and back again. And yeah, I mean, he can just make that guitar sound like a little jacked up robot crying for help, basically. And that's not an easy thing to do. Talented man. that's pretty cool. And then, being from the Cure side of all this, I couldn't help but while watching the show just be amazed by when you see somebody like Reeves totally destroying it in their own songs, and just that's what it is, and even by me saying that he's playing a little too much in solos, it's like, well, that's what you're there for, nobody's going to see Reeves for so he can play like a folk ballad, or you want to just see him destroy it on guitar. And so obviously that's what you're there for. But with that in mind, and just seeing it in person of how amazing guitarist he is, and just all the cool shit he can and does do on his songs, it also made me really respect how well he handled all those Cure songs on the last 2016 tour, and just what a tasteful, great guitarist he is, in the sense that he's doing all these crazy riffs and solos in his songs, and wouldn't dare try to even sneak any of that really into Boys Don't Cry or something. It's like any Cure song. I think people noted on the last tour that you start to hear a little bit of his style creeping in more, and Letter to Elise was one of the bigger ones that people are like, I don't know about the solo at first, and A Night Like This, I think it was, but and I thought those were great. I definitely agreed that they seemed weird at first. I was like, oh, he's playing a little too good on those, and was a little bit cautious, but at the same time, by hearing the bootlegs over and over again, I was like, I think it's cool. It's great that he is able to put his own touch on it and not totally change up the songs. But I mean, for how many songs they were playing on that tour and in each set, I mean, you would think by default he would just be like, oh, just let me totally trash up one of them, and wouldn't even be a big deal if Robert had been like, yeah, fucking cut loose on, I don't know what would be a good example. Some Friday I'm in Love. He's just like, that would be a terrible one to do it on. But you would think, I mean, bands have made dumber decisions, but I mean, it's pretty cool that he was able to, whether it was declared from the get-go of Robert being like, don't fucking solo all over my songs or what, but what a tasteful, it's basically, I just kept thinking of it as like a ninja, asking a ninja to professionally box, put him in a ring and have him box in a very controlled way, it's just this dude is always on the brink of just cutting loose. So it was man, when you really just watch him play Boys Don't Cry or something, you'd think it'd just be torture for him not to tear it up, but thank God he didn't, because you don't want to do that. Overplaying is definitely scary business, and you don't want to touch a classic like that. So I don't know what else can I say. It was definitely seemed in a pretty good mood, like I said, because of the sparse crowd. It would have been easy for him to kind of come out and be kind of diva-ish and whatever, and just but I think they had a good perspective on it. It's technically the first night of their tour. I think he said something about a 15-show tour, 20 days, 15 shows. I'm not sure where they're headed next, but they just came from Nashville, where I think they're all based out of, and did a warm-up show there, but this is the first away-from-home show. And so I hope it keeps going smooth for them, and they get more people out there. Asheville's just always weird that way. You never really know who the hell's going to show up. So yeah, going back to that Kogasm Sign from God song, just in kind of Cure trivia, I never realized that they recorded Wrong Number in that same session with Sign from God. Read that somewhere recently, so that's kind of interesting, which lends me to think that maybe that key Cure members at the time didn't actually play on Wrong Number, it was just the three of them. Seems like Simon had to have come in and played bass on it, but I'll dig around on some credits, see what I can find. But guess it doesn't really matter too much, but kind of cool to know that those two were like little Reeves pair songs there, Sign from God and Wrong Number. So, yeah, pretty neat. And I don't know if I really have too much more to say. Maybe this will be a really short episode. It was cool just getting out and seeing him that close up and just seeing something Cure related and supporting him. And always fun to go to the Grey Eagle. I love that venue. And I wish Asheville would have represented a little bit better. That was part of my should I go? It's a weeknight, it's $20, and but I'm like, chances are like Asheville won't represent and he'll never come back here again. So you always have to seize the moment with those. Like, I would like to think that maybe he just had a good time and he knew that it was a short notice thing. Another cool thing I saw on I missed it, but we have like a local radio, Asheville FM, and I saw Carl, a buddy of Arusha's, had posted on there the link, I guess, when it was happening, and he had a really cool quote that I guess he had pulled that Reeves had said on the air of here in Asheville last night, and how I guess they probably asked him Cure questions, and he said, talking about the Cure's like Fight Club, where you don't mention it, nobody talks about the Cure unless it's happening. So I don't know if that means that he's hiding some secrets or he just didn't want to answer any Cure questions. So part of me was like, maybe I should try to flag him down after the show and hit him up. But then I was like, well, I'm only gonna want to ask him Cure questions, and let's be honest. So I was just like, and he wasn't really hanging around after the set, like he didn't do an encore. He was just kind of like, all right. So I just split, and didn't get a chance to get him to record anything or do a full interview or anything. But I thought that was kind of funny that he would say being in the Cure, talking about the Cure is like Fight Club. It makes sense. Another weird thing, and it might be just because I haven't gone to many shows in a while, is that this thing, and I can't tell if I'm not knocking it so much, because when I'm not there, I definitely like it and enjoy when people do the live broadcasting kind of thing through Facebook or Instagram, where they do like the in the moment, because I've definitely just been sitting on the couch late, and like I see somebody post up like a show that's like nowhere near me or anything, and I was like, oh cool, I'll watch a little second of this show, and I guess it's on par with like Periscope and all that, and but man, being at a show, maybe it was because it was a smaller crowd, but it was a little annoying. Like, I had like 5 people around me, and all of them were just locked in with like a live streaming of the camera locked on to Reeves. And I'm just like standing there watching him play and like just seeing these people watch their phones watch him play. And it was just like, it definitely sucked me out of the moment, which, it's not a big deal. I'm not like one of those like, stop taking pictures. And I always think it's kind of douchey when bands don't even want people like pointing things at them and stuff like that. And he didn't care, so he was totally cool with it. But I just thought it was weird in the sense that like how long these people would go. It was like multiple songs at a few times, or it was just like, if you're just getting like one song or something cool or like half a song, go for it, But it was like, they're just like locked on, and it got to a point where it was like, it almost seems more like you're watching a live event from home, watching their live thing, than they're like not really watching a live thing if you're watching your phone while watching a live thing. Does that make sense? It just didn't seem like they were watching a live thing anymore because there were so many phones looking at the live performance. So it was really weird. But I don't know. And then inevitably too, like half of them would hit some weird buffering thing or something where it didn't properly load, and then I just see them look down at their phone and be like, oh, what the shit? And then they're like scrolling through something and they have to like re-upload it, and they're like getting distracted. So then, half the 5 people that were like locked on like it was fucking war footage or something they're all just like checking something on their phone, doing like IT work at this point. And I was just like, oh, that's kind of annoying as like a performer, probably, to like look down and just see like 5 people with like looking, trying to fix their phone. I don't know. Like I said, I appreciate it when I'm not at shows and I watch them, but like seeing it was like kind of annoying. So I don't know. think if you're in the right spot, but they're just like right front of the stage doing it. It's just like, it's kind of creepy. But just an observation, not officially griping, because I don't know. But on top of that, I guess I don't really have too much to say. I'm glad I went, and home in a reasonable hour, and talking to you fine people. I hope I convinced some of you that you should go out and see him on this tour. I think it really does make a huge difference, even if you're not a huge fan of his recordings. I enjoyed listening to him, but I wouldn't really say a lot of the songs on the albums grab me as like something I'd want to just listen to a lot. And that's mostly just because I'm like songwriter nerd, or, like the actual writing isn't really a song that blows me away a lot of times. But just seeing them play it live is like so cool. And just watching somebody like be a master of their craft like that is just pretty awesome, and I recommend it. So I think if he's coming to your town, don't just scratch it off because you're like, I don't know, guitar stuff, and it's pretty cool. It's worth the ticket, and seems like a cool dude, and I hope he sticks around with The Cure for whatever projects may or may not arise at this point. I hope he's a part of it when they do finally record that next album. So staying positive. In other big Cure news, who knows what else we got? Roger got his helicopter license. So that's that. And what else? I did listen to a few of those Gothcast podcasts. We've been kind of touching on some of those in past episodes. So there's like an actual podcast, not just the YouTube video clips that I stumbled across, but it's all goth stuff, so there's only like 4 or 5 like actual Cure themed ones out of maybe like 50 episodes, maybe not even that much. And it's very like surface level in the sense that they like group them all, like the first 4 albums and the next 4, and they kind of just breeze through the albums and say what they like and what they don't. But it's good. I like it, and I'm just so happy to hear other people had recorded some Cure talk out there for the sound waves of the internet, and so I recommend go checking that out. It's on iTunes as well, just called Gothcast, and we'll be back with more. We got a lot of cool ones on the horizon. So I found out that also here in Asheville that on Halloween night, the Cure tribute band from God knows where is playing. A little annoyed that it's on actual Halloween, but I think I can get my kid out trick-or-treating and home and back in bed in time, or I could sneak out again and maybe do another one of these great on-the-road episodes here, or in the parking lot talking to you guys episodes, and tell you what a Cure tribute band is like in Asheville. So I don't know. I'm not expecting a huge turnout on that one either. It's at the even bigger venue, the Orange Peel. So who knows? I mean, I feel like if anyone's got to be there, I got to represent. So I'm going to try to make it, maybe by making it known on this podcast. I feel like I have to do it now. So we'll see. Cure Tribute Night. And coming up for the Halloween episode, be sure to send me your costume ideas. Anybody dress up as Robert Smith or something Cure related this year, past years, plan on doing it 4 years from now? Anything. I'd love to hear your stories, your war stories. We had some great ones last year. So send me some pictures, or tell me what happened or what didn't happen. It doesn't even have to be Halloween, but anytime you dressed up as Robert Smith for a work function or something, that would be great. So, and I'm going to double that up with a feature episode for Halloween on the song Lullaby. So if you have any personal stories of how Lullaby is dear to your heart, or you just totally can't stand it, I would love to hear from you. So send any of that business to gavinconner@gmail.com, and go on over to iTunes and subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss any more riveting episodes like this one. And rank us over there, review us if you feel like it. I don't really care at this point, so if you want to, do it. But Instagram, follow us on that so you can find out what's around the corner as well. And thanks so much for listening. Sorry this one's a bit convoluted. When we do our 2-hour episodes, I like to say that compensates for these short little mini rambly ones. So it is what it is. I saw Reeves, man. I'm feeling good about it. My ears are still rattling. I've probably just been shouting at you for the last 30 minutes, so I apologize for that too. But thanks so much. Feel free to go back and check out past episodes and go over to curefandocumentary.com to check out our buddy Arusha's ongoing film that she's making, a documentary on the Cure that focused on following them during the Blood Flowers tour, Dream Tour was it called, in 2000. And go over and get all the social media updates on that and figure out ways that you can help fund it. And buy some merch over at mixedupgifts.com, a great store for Cure-related and other cool pop culture things. If you're living in the Denver, Colorado area, it turns out that Mixed Up Gifts has a actual storefront now, I think. And so if you're in Denver, look that up, Mixed Up Gifts, and go check out the actual store. I wish I lived out there. That would be awesome. And it looks great from the pictures, so go check it out on all the social media too, Mixed Up Gifts. And we'll catch you soon, guys. I don't think there's anything left to say at this point except talk hard. Or I'm losing my voice. I was singing along so hard that I blew my throat out. Talk hard.